All right, everybody. Welcome to Romera Records, episode 7. This is a pretty interesting episode. We have on Dustin again. Dustin, as you might remember from our earlier podcast, he is a Marine and a very distinguished fella. Ended up getting a job at Rockwell Automation.
Mama, I made it.
So, today we're going to talk about a little bit about intelligent people and their, correlation with all sorts of mental, instability and some anxiety, depression, and things of that nature. If you know anybody who has a type of situation that goes through this kind of stuff, then you'll understand how it can really affect a person. It really affects how they think and how they interact with other people. And I think we can all have some sort of relation to it, just with the many different types of people that we interact with on a daily basis. So if you will, Dustin, go ahead and explain to people, what I guess your experience with people in this situation. If you know anybody personally, or if you just, read stories about anything, just give everybody, a rough brief on whatever you know about it.
Well, as far as like mental disorders, it runs in my family like wildfire.
Okay.
And so ultimately, mental disorders is what took my dad from us. And it has affected me throughout most of my life. So I'm no expert by any means, but I have experienced it both through a family member and for myself. It's not fun. It's something that's hard to describe if you've never, been through it, and you can never really understand. You can just guess at it, but it definitely can alter the way you see the world. For a while, you'll see it as dark and hateful, and not see very much good in the world. And that's what makes it so hard to get out of, especially with the way things are portrayed today. Whereas you see so much negativity in the air on the news or on social media, it's constant back and forth negativity. It just makes it that much harder to get out. So you have to literally find a way to not necessarily like cut it off and imagine you're in this happy-go-lucky world, because that's unrealistic. But you have to find a way to cope and find releases and stuff that can cheer you up, that you can do, pretty frequently. And so it starts off as a distraction, but then it later leads into like developing a habit of, finding the positive side in things. Like, oh, say something bad came up and happened and you had to shell out a bunch of money for it. You have to try to find like a positive spin on it, to be like, well, at least it happened before, say something happened to your car, and when you tried to start it or something, it wasn't working. And you had to shell out a bunch of money for it. You can, that's a real big negative thing for some people, because a lot of people can't afford a big surprise like that. But a positive thing is like, well, at least it happened while it was parked. At least I wasn't going like 90 down the freeway, and it just went out and I couldn't do nothing about it.
Yeah. So
you kind of have to like literally rewire your brain to go from being negative all the time to finding the positives in life. But as far as like the intellectual part of it, like there's been a lot of, so in the limited knowledge and research that I did, is a rough estimate of about 30 studies that have been done that correlate higher intellect with mental instability. So they say you're more likely to experience bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, all those. And for me, a simpleton, I looked at it as if like, oh, well, I guess the more the brain understands about reality, the more it's like, yeah, we should just leave. So, but there's a couple studies that pointed out to like our ancestral background, saying the modern human's brain was developed during that time period, the primal emotion of fear and fight or flight, that's been ingrained in us from our ancestral ties. And they say the brain is programmed and wired for that time. And so it has sometimes, especially with higher intellect, it has difficulty like fathoming and understanding and accepting stuff that we have now that didn't exist back then. So like the sciences and the math that we have obviously didn't exist back then. it wasn't a thing. And so the brain has a hard time like accepting those things, which is weird to think about it, because it's like our brains are the ones that created it. So how come we cannot accept it? Which honestly is a shock to me. I didn't know that till I read up on it a little bit. But there's been plenty of people, like famous people, like Ernest Hemingway, bipolar. Van Gogh, bipolar. So there's people that I never knew about that suffered from these things, but they're such great artists. But they also struggle so much that it's become a question of how much are we going to let, these, I guess, higher thinking individuals suffer for our profit.
And I guess just to piggyback off of that exact phrase, so to bring it more modern, you're bringing up people who are, lived a long time ago. Think about somebody like Kanye. Kanye went through, I'm not going to say a phase, but a phase to where people just really think he's crazy. Mm-hmm. I say he went through, but I feel like he's still kind of going through that.
Yeah.
Because there are so many times where he'll just say some crazy stuff or just do some crazy things, and everybody's like, yo, Kanye's crazy, something's wrong with him. Mm-hmm. But then other people are like, there's something actually probably, like wrong with him. You know what I mean? Like some people just say it just to be joking, like, yo, that dude's crazy and something wrong with him. But then some people are like, no, there's actually something wrong with him. I remember he was on, he did a short little interview with TMZ. I don't know if you saw that. You can find it on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. I think that's where I saw it.
Yeah.
But he was talking about how he was taking all sorts of pills, and he said that he got surgery. He got like liposuction or something, because he was afraid that people were going to make fun of him for being fat. And I was like, wow, because his fame, his status, really was controlling
who he was or how he acted.
Yeah, it was absolutely affecting his mental state. And I don't know if that's maybe, that happens to people who are very well known, people who are very well renowned. You have to think of people maybe like Albert Einstein. That dude was a genius and everybody knew it. Also people like Elon Musk. I don't know if you've ever seen Elon Musk talk. That dude sounds so weird. He sounds super weird. It sounds like he's struggling to have a conversation with whoever he's talking to.
But he's a genius.
But that dude's a genius. So it makes you wonder exactly that. Are people who are more intellectual, people who have a greater set of thinking than, I guess, the average individual? Because you have to give it to Kanye. That dude's a musical genius. The instrumentals that he makes, the beats, all the music, everything he does is art, and he pieces it together pretty well. No matter if you think, like, honestly, I think his last album was trash, in my opinion. But some people think it was amazing. Yeah. It's good to somebody.
Well, I mean, it's the Kardashians, bro. They break people.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they do. Look what they did to the NBA player. I mean, come on. He's got a coke addiction now. Yeah. Come on.
But it's crazy thinking about the people who are well-renowned and have some sort of, I guess, that people take what they are, who they are in the world, and they put it on a pedestal. And I don't know if that affects how they think.
It has to. Because at this day and age, it's, a lot of, instant gratification. And also people are just so much more toxic now than they used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Like you remember, like growing up, parents would say, yeah, when we were kids, we could leave the door unlocked, or we'd leave and we'd come back, didn't have a cell phone, nothing. We were fine. And even for some of us, depending on where you grew up, we had that same kind of ordeal. Like you'd leave and then it's like, hey, be back before the street lights come on. That's when you had to come home. I didn't have a cell phone. All I had was a bike. I just pedaled my way over to my friend's house and, we'd play all day and whatever. And I'd come home before the sun got down all the way. And nowadays you can't do that because there's so many, creeps, and there's people that are just not sane now. And a lot of it has to do with the way technology has influenced us, because if you look at the average teen now, say, leaving middle school, getting into high school, especially high school, the teens there have such bad anxiety and depression that they're higher than the mental patients that they used to put in mental facilities in the 50s. That is how much stress they're under right now. And you think, well, what do you have to worry about? You're a kid. You literally go to school, you do homework. That's it. Your parents do everything else. It should be your parents that have that, that high level, when it's not the case, because they're growing up with all this new technology that, a lot of us, we were born before, we raised a little bit, and then it was born after us. And so we kind of, we're not as in touch with it, and it's not all we know. So we're not as affected. We're still greatly affected by it, a lot more than our parents are, because obviously they had none of it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But the kids now, there's so much pressure to live a certain way, project a certain image. And if you don't live up to it, there's going to be someone that says it. And even if you do live up to it, it's going to be someone that says something negative about it. And at any age, if it's just constant negativity in that way, your brain is going to eventually start to think that way. You got one of two routes. Your brain can choose to, just say, I don't care what people think. I don't care what they say. I'm going to do what makes me happy. And then there's another one where you front like that, but in reality, behind closed doors, you're trying to alter your image, yourself, or the way you talk, or the things you do, to become, a more socially acceptable person and be with the popular kids. Yeah. And it's just becoming visceral now at this point. Like online, these people are just ruthless.
Absolutely. If you just take a second and look through anybody who's famous, who's got a blue check mark next to their name, just read comments that are on that person's page. Dude. Any post that person is going to post, if they have, 1,000 comments, 5,000 comments, there's going to be probably, 30% are negative.
At least.
That's insane.
Yeah.
People who either you follow the person or you don't, whatever you do, people are going to leave some negative comments. And
you can't. It's that age-old saying, you can't please everybody.
Oh yeah.
But in today's day and age, everybody wants to be pleased, and if they are not in the slightest way, if they're like, "Oh, this you almost made me happy, you missed it by this much," so for that, I'm gonna rip into you as best I can and do my worst towards you, and that's the way people see it nowadays, and that's the way they think. And so people that I guess are like in the limelight, especially like a good example, Disney. All their actors and everyone that's I guess tied in with them, I can't imagine the stress they're under, because if they literally have to be walking angels, because if they mess up one little thing, they're blackballed. Yeah, they're done. I mean, it's over. And that kind of pressure, especially on like these teen actors, it's got to be insane. Yeah. I mean, because let's face it, being a teenager, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna go out to a party, or you're gonna, fail a test or something like that. It could be anything minor, or it could be, for some people, they're overachievers and they'll fail epically at something. Yeah. But for them, they have to live by a different set of rules. They literally have to live in a cocoon of like, I can't do that. I can only go to Disney sponsored events because that's the only things I'm allowed to do and not get in trouble for at this point. Like, how they put up with that and how they do it, I'll never understand.
And even think about, say you're the really smart kid in class, and whether it's college or high school, whatever have you, think about somebody who is like that, and they see an athlete in high school who probably is like making C's or whatever, and they're the smart kid and they're making all A's, and nobody really talks to them. You know what I mean? Like they're making all the good grades. Nobody talks to them. They're not popular, but yet you got the kid who, is making straight C's and B's in school, and yet they're the popular kid, and everybody talks to them. They have fun. They get away with stuff, yada, yada, yada. That has to be mentally crippling to a person, to think that you should be important, but nobody cares about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it time and time again. Where you'll see like this one person that, they're just so smart. It's insane how smart they are, but they have no friends. And it's a double-sided coin though, because you have on one end of the coin, you have, people, honestly, I do believe it's like an inferiority complex where they feel inferior to that person. So they want to distance themselves because they don't want to, nobody wants to be made to feel stupid. Yeah. And if someone with a really high intellect is next to you, you're really not gonna, you're not going to
Yeah.
talk to them that much
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you're like, yeah, I don't want to feel like an idiot all the time.
You don't know what to say.
Yeah, like, why would, yeah. And he'd be like, don't be foolish. And they'll do that. And so you're just like, oh, all right, I'm an idiot now, and
Yeah.
all this and that. And nobody likes that feeling. That's why, and it's sad to say, that's why a lot of people do prefer athletes, because there's a stereotype.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they're just big and dumb. That's all athletes are. They can play with the ball really good, and they're physically gifted. That's all it is.
Man, I remember when I was in basic training, there's a Rodgers, that was his name. So Rodgers, he with me and him, we were having some conversation about, I think it was just about galaxies or outer space or something. I don't remember what it was, but we were talking about that one day during basic training, and Rodgers was like, Henderson, I actually kind of like you. At first, I thought you were just one of those really douchebag jocks because you're just so big and muscular. I was like, dang, Rodgers, thanks. But he was like, you're actually pretty smart and pretty cool. And I was like, wow. So it's funny. Because, I mean, he was a likable person. He was pretty smart. He seemed to have some sort of, I guess, social awkwardness when he was around people just because of the way he talked.
Yeah.
But he carried himself pretty decently. He had confidence. He wasn't like, the most cocky person or confident wise, but he was able to do what he could.
If he was put on the spot, he'd handle it.
Yeah. But it was just funny for him to say that about me. A lot of people probably think that about me when they see me. I'm a muscular guy, and they're probably thinking, I'm just another jock type person. But I've gotten that multiple times. But to hear that from somebody who is a pretty intellectual person, as he was,
Yeah.
and to know that that's what those type of people think, those people who are smart and they distance themselves, they think that about other people, so they might, not talk to other people because of the way they feel how other people are. And it's a lot of times, so people will always say, are you judging me? Like, don't judge me, stuff like that. I judge people all the time.
All the time.
I tell people that, and I do not even hesitate to tell people that, like, I'm going to judge you hard.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm going to criticize you.
Yeah.
I'm going to judge you because I'm going to think a certain way about you based off of how you act, the way you dress, the way you talk, stuff like that. But that's not going to change how I actually treat you.
Yeah.
That's just what I'm thinking about
How
you.
you treat me is going to change how I treat you.
Yeah.
You want to be a douche magoo? All
Yeah.
right, we can play this in twos.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's no big deal to think a certain way about people.
Yeah.
If you're a type of person who has like any type of anxiety or depression or something like that, you just automatically have a certain way that you think about other people.
It's not even about other people. It's what you think those other people think about you.
that too. Yeah.
Anxiety is a real killer on that.
Oh yeah.
Like you can literally, anxiety will cause you to not go out. You get the friends or you get the people that, they can talk to people, but it takes them a long time to develop a connection to where they can talk to them comfortably. Other than that, I mean, they get somewhere and they think, oh, I'm too stupid for this. Or, they think, oh, I talk a certain way, because they do have a higher intellect. Some of them do. They talk a certain way that it's a little bit elevated because I mean, those dumb people are like, oh, you use your big words. You think you're fancy, huh? And, we could be just messing with them. But to them, deep down, that's how their mind perceives it.
Yeah.
Is like people think I'm stuck up because I use big words. But it's the words that's what comes to me naturally.
Yeah.
And some of that, though, is honestly because they read. A lot of people don't read.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it myself. I don't read, bro. I'm like, hey, what's that? It's a book. Is there a movie out about it? Yeah, I'll go watch that. I mean, it's just, that's how I am. But, because a lot of people, especially in this day and age, don't read unless it's something like a tweet and like 120 characters or less.
Yeah.
I ain't reading it.
Yeah.
And it's like weird because we have so much access to documentation now. We could read any report we want.
Yep.
If I wanted to Google something in China and have Google translate it so I could read it, I could make that happen now.
Yeah.
And reading does, make it to where your brain comprehends more. Obviously, yes, it'll improve how fast you read, but you expose your brain to like words that it doesn't normally see in this day and age because everybody's, trying to make everything as short as possible. And this says, all these big words that no one ever knows how to spell. Like, it's insane that just because, hey, I read a lot of books, now I'm smarter. And now my brain is like, well, people are going to think you're a stuck-up douche because you use these big words. You think you're better than people. Why do you think you're better than people? And then they attack themselves, and they'll psych themselves out.
And being smart doesn't help because your mind will start running at 1,000 miles per hour.
And then it's like, and then it starts running through, like what could possibly go wrong, or what could be said, or how people perceive you, and you just kind of like shut yourself off from the world. And it's sad because I've met people that like are really not sociable people. They don't talk to a lot of people at all. And I, being stubborn as I am, if I see them and I'm like, you need to come out and have a life, I'll weasel my way into their life and be like, all right, now let's go. And I'll take them out and, try to get them to talk to people. And if not, it's fine. I'll be that friend. I'll go hang out with them and play video games or, talk about whatever. And I'll tell them every time, I'm like, yeah, whatever, smarty pants. You can't beat me up, just to mess with them. But
what else can you do? Can you box?
Yeah. Can you box, bro? Can you even dance? You got holes? Yeah. No, I show them that because some of them really can't take a joke. Yeah. Some people can really not take a joke, and especially some people with anxiety, which is weird. Or at least the ones I've experienced. I don't know if this is a stereotype, but the ones I've experienced, they take a lot of the jokes serious, as if like I'm voicing a serious complaint to them, saying that, hey, I'm tired of you making me feel like an idiot. No, I don't care. I know I'm stupid. That don't bother me. I mean, I get by, I do what I got to do, and I learn what I have to learn. May not be as fast as the other guy, but and they take it to heart, like an honest criticism. Like if someone's like literally critiquing you to try to help you become better, that's what they think it is. And then they feel bad about themselves, and they like attack themselves about it, saying, why do you always have to make people feel stupid around you? Like, yes, we get it. You're smart, but you don't have to rub it in people's faces when they're not. Yeah. And it doesn't help that there are some really, really sensitive people out here that are just like, yeah, you think you're smarter than me? And it's like, well, judging from the way you talk, yes, absolutely, 100%. I believe I will outperform you on any test.
It's also interesting how other people perceive really smart people, and how just by the way that you interact with them can affect how, because when you are a really smart person, you tend to, I guess, overanalyze a situation, and it's very damaging to a person who can comprehend that type of thing, because a lot of people, if you say something or do a certain thing, it'll just go over their head. Like they don't even think about it. Yeah. But somebody who is really smart, they're going to analyze that, and it's magnified times 10, because if they're going through anything, I know. So a girl I used to date, she had anxiety and depression, and it was crazy because she was trying to explain it to me, and that was like super hard to comprehend, because she was just talking about how she felt like she was in a box, and that she was just like trapped in her mind. And I was like, whoa.
Block.
Because I've never experienced that. I've never felt like I was trapped in my mind.
It's really hard to understand unless you've gone through it. Yeah. And like before, obviously I was a kid, I didn't have to worry about it. I was fine. And then around, 17, 18, it hit me like a freight train. And you honestly, and like people try to help, and it sucks because you want the help, and you want, to have people that are there for you. And even when you do, you still shut them out. Your brain will still force you to shut them out.
Don't even know how to deal with it.
And you'll withdraw from everything and everyone, and just lay in bed or just sit in a chair and like stare outside, or, do anything you can to isolate yourself and just be alone, which is the absolute worst thing to do. In most cases. In some cases, it's just what the doctor ordered, because some people, they get off by themselves and they find themselves, and, they become so much happier because of it. So, I mean, it could go either way. Predominantly, though, it does go, and the more alone you are, the worse it gets. Yeah. And that sucks. But it's, I honestly do believe, in the case of, I guess, like the higher intellects, it's because they see how messed up the world really is, and they understand it more than, the common mind. They understand, no matter how good they are at what they do, or no matter what new crazy invention they come up with to help the world, it's not going to save it. It's not going to, sorry to be Mr. Doom and Gloom right now, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And they see that, and they comprehend it so much more in detail than the rest of us. And it just it depresses the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Hell, it depresses me, and I'm just like, man, this sucks. So, I mean, it's a shitty situation no matter how you look at it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I definitely think that it's something that I don't think people are trying to take advantage of it. I think things.
Some people are.
Yeah.
Some people are. They will claim they're depressed just for attention. They will claim, the ones that vocalize it the most, 9 times out of 10 don't have it. They just want attention, and that's what's in right now. It's the ones you got to worry about that literally are quiet, off to themselves. Like, they don't make a scene. They try to just blend in the background and never be seen, because their anxiety and everything kicks in that way. And then on the flip side, though, you could have someone that's the center of attention all the time. They're constantly cracking jokes. They're constantly being funny. And, you see him and you see all these people interact with him. You're like, oh, my God, he must be so happy. When he goes home, he's clinically depressed. And, that's what the issue with, a lot of comedians.
Drinking all the time and whatnot.
Drinking, doing drugs. Yeah. A lot of comedians are clinically depressed. And, as funny as they are in public, when they go home, they're fried. And it's horrible to see that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, so this is actually going to wrap it up, but I just want people to understand that if you see somebody who you think is going through a bunch of stuff, take some time to really understand whatever that person is going through, understand whatever their situation is. There's as we said, there's tons of people, even if they're not extremely brilliant, artistic or anything like that. Even in the case of Kanye, we as people look at famous people that we don't know, that we aren't familiar with, and we treat them like freaking monkeys that are just entertaining us. And
dance monkey.
Yeah, it was shut up and dance. That one reporter, she told LeBron James
to shut up and play ball.
Shut up and play ball. That dude has an actual mind.
Was that Tommy Lauren?
I have no idea.
I think it was her. Was she blonde?
I don't even remember. I don't even know.
I think it was her. She's gotten into plenty of fights with the rap industry and athletes.
Oh, okay.
But she's a whole nother story.
Yeah. So, just to end it, people make sure that you understand, what's going on. Talk to the people, and if they need their space, give them the space. But if not,
y'all need to. And everyone, I just want to say this before we go, is just to understand that not one solution fits all.
Absolutely.
It's not a one size fits all type deal. I mean, each one is different. You have to handle it differently. Just figure out how you can best help them without smothering them, because then that'll just push them away even farther. So you got to find that right balance. But just don't give up on them, and be there for them when they need you. And I promise you'll have a friend for life after that.
Awesome. Thank you, Dustin. And everybody, thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.